Today is Saturday, October 15th, 2022. There is need for a uniform process for federal elections based upon Article 1, Section 4, Clause 1 of the United States Constitution. You can look at that. There's a need for federal monitors to monitor elections right now to make sure that everything is fair, that citizens who have a right to vote can vote. There's something called the 15th Amendment. It gave men of color the right to vote. And the 9th Amendment gave women the right to vote. And so we need to protect that right to vote right now, right here. Then you have the 26th Amendment that gave 18-year-olds the right to vote. So the Constitution gives people the right to vote who are citizens of the United States of America. That's so important. This is disturbing.
Election day is less than a month away, which means the country is less than a month away from finding out whether the overwhelming number of Republican nominees for office across the country who are on record as denying or questioning the 2020 election results, whether those candidates will actually be elected. They are more than half of the Republican field, according to the Washington Post. 538.com did a similar analysis, but framed the results slightly differently, saying that 60% of American voters will have at least one election denier on their ballot this fall. But Republicans haven't just corrupted ballots across the country with anti-democratic election deniers. They're also planning to flood polling places with them. Check out this report from Reuters. Interviews with more than 24 election officials revealed an intensifying grassroots effort to recruit activists. This has heightened alarm that disturbances in this year's primary contests could foreshadow problems in November's local, state, and national races. The Reuters reporting focuses on Arizona, North Carolina, and Nevada, which are 3 key states this cycle. And here's what they report about Arizona. During early voting in Arizona's Pima County, an election observer was told to put away binoculars. Another was caught looking at private voter data, and another was asked to stop making comments about fraudulent elections. And they also cite multiple complaints from voters that individuals were shouting at them from outside the 75-foot circumference around polling stations, where interaction with voters is banned. That all reportedly happened during Arizona's primaries, but imagine what could happen in November now that there are election deniers in all of the top-of-the-ticket statewide races. We're not just talking about Kari Lake, the Republican candidate for governor who's made election denialism the centerpiece of her campaign and who's now polling neck and neck with Democratic candidate Katie Hobbs. We're also talking about Mark Finchem, the Republican nominee for Secretary of State, which is, of course, the office in charge of overseeing elections. Finchem says that if he wins, he wants to use that office's unilateral authority over state election equipment to require that all future ballots be counted by hand. For an indicator here, Arizonans cast more than 3.4 million ballots in the 2020 presidential election. A hand count. What could possibly go wrong? This is what happened in one Nevada county during this year's primaries, according, again, to Reuters. People with night vision goggles stood outside the registrar's building and aimed their cameras at election workers counting votes on primary night in June. Now, Nevada, of course, is one of the key states for party control of the U.S. Senate, and the Republican candidate for Senate, a former state co-chair for Trump, who filed lawsuits to overturn the 2020 election results, he could potentially flip that seat out of Democratic hands. And then there's North Carolina, another key state, again, in terms of party control of the Senate, and currently one of the closest races in the country. According to Reuters, officials in 16 North Carolina counties reported unusually aggressive poll watchers this spring. In one county, quote, observers demanded to inspect voting machine tabulators in violation of state election laws. Others repeatedly grilled poll workers or demanded to take pictures inside voting stations. When they were told to stop, they said they were following guidance from a Republican Party lawyer. This is apparently the playbook. The Democratic Party tells Reuters they've hired 5 staffers to work in those 3 states, as well as 2 others who have faced growing threats to the democratic process. But is that enough? There are 25 days till Election Day. Strap yourselves in, and also maybe consider volunteering to help out election workers in your state, because they obviously need you. Okay, we have much more ahead, including new questions about...
As citizens of the United States of America, everyone who is a citizen who's eligible should have that right to vote without any infringement. And whoever wins the election wins the election. That's America. That's democracy. That's what makes our country so great. Therefore, the DOJ, Department of Justice, and others should be not just watching this, but making sure that things are done efficiently, properly, neutrally, without any type of coercion going on by outside people. And American citizens should be allowed to vote. Simple as that. Although we have a history in America. Well, women couldn't vote when the country first got started. Slaves, the free labor, working people, they couldn't vote, right? When it got started. So there's a history. And white men who didn't have property couldn't vote. So there's a history. But now, where we are today, in 2022, we're at a place where we're in a multiracial, multicultural, multi-ethnic society, the greatest democracy in the history of humankind, greatest nation in the history of humankind. Let's move forward together as one race, the human race, and move forward as human beings, helping each other together as one. Thank you for being on my YouTube channel, One Race, Human Race, all human. Bless you.